Hi, everybody. Welcome to a very special Wild Card Series recap episode of the Base Hit Ball 4 podcast. I'm Glen alongside Scott Roswald. As you can see, only half of the crew with us today because, what we want to do this month is just put out content as it happens to keep everything fresh and make sure all of our content is, relevant because things change day by day. So no matter what, we're going to do a show after each round. And the wild card series is finally over. All the series are done. It was a very, very entertaining wild card series, Scott. And I was thinking about this while watching these games, especially on that Wednesday when there was like 5 games on at once.
Yeah.
At one point. Between the 12 o'clock games then to the later games, there was 5 at once, and I had this whole setup with all these screens and computers out, and it had like this March Madness feel, and I didn't know how I felt about this as the season went on when they announced that they were expanding the playoffs. But you got to say, there's definitely things that could be altered and maybe made more fair for the teams that over a course of 162 are good teams. Like if the Dodgers win 110 games, they shouldn't have to play an 80-win Brewers team, even if it's a foregone conclusion they're going to win, because you never know, as we saw with the Miami series. So there's things they can alter. They can implement bye weeks maybe, or maybe just make it a little bit more of an advantage for that home team in the playoffs. But I think this system is here to stay for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, it sounded like it was kind of the plan. That's what Manfred wanted. Obviously, it makes Major League Baseball more money, more games, more ad revenue. Next year, hopefully, when there's fans back in the stadium, more games, more money. I think that's really what it comes down to. I don't think Major League Baseball really cares that 2 teams under 500 might make the postseason. They're just concerned about more playoff baseball because, as you said, on Wednesday we had 5 games on at one point. Absolutely loved it. I didn't get much work done this week because of postseason baseball, but it was just so enjoyable having multiple games, being able to go back and forth between games. If one game was not so entertaining, you could just flip over to something new and something more exciting is going to be happening. So I think you're right. Plus, this format's probably going to stay. Probably you could earn that. If you're that top seed, you could probably earn that bye, just so you don't have to risk losing in a first round matchup on something fluky. You earn that right. If you win 100 plus games, you shouldn't really have to be sweating out a first round matchup. But yeah, it's been exciting. It was a great first round, a lot of great games, some great series, some upsets. So I was pleased with this first week of postseason baseball.
Yeah, I don't think you could have asked for more as a baseball fan to the week that we just had with all those games. I want to give ESPN a lot of credit because they had that squeeze play kind of red zone-ish kind of channel going on if you had ESPN Plus, and they all did a pretty good job. It's really hard to call games from a studio when you're not actually there, and I thought all the broadcasts were totally fine. And another thing that I was worried about, vibe without a crowd, like playoff games in empty ballparks. But yeah, especially as a Yankee fan who has a dog in the fight in the Yankees-Cleveland series, those are really intense matchups, even without a crowd. So the intensity of the postseason, it didn't really lose a lot with it without fans in the stands screaming their heads off. So I thought it was a really good week.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome week. Definitely didn't lose. You lose some of the atmosphere, but as you mentioned, postseason baseball is different. Play style is so much different. It's way more tight. Managers are on top of their game, making sure nothing gets out of hand too quick. Definitely didn't lose that. You had that excitement, that intensity. Uh, that second Yankees Indians game was an all-time classic. Um, Nail biter for you guys.
Oh, I was
Uh,
dying.
the game last night, game 2 of Padres and Cardinals, another phenomenal game. Um, yeah, just an awesome week of baseball. I'm excited moving forwards. Now we're going into the bubble format, into the 4 cities moving forwards. I think it's going to be great.
So let's break down the wild card series one by one. There are 16 teams, 8 series. In the end, the Yankees, Rays, Astros, Athletics, Dodgers, Padres, Miami, and Atlanta move on. We'll start with the series that just concluded about 10 minutes ago. The Padres, after losing the first game, came back and won the next two against the St. Louis Cardinals. Game one, the Cardinals dominated the Padres 7-1. Game two was, as you said, a great game between the two teams, 11-9 in favor of San Diego. The Cardinals came out firing 4-0 lead. Late into the game, it looked like all was lost for San Diego, and then Tatis and Machado went back to back, and then Myers hit one, and then Tatis hit one again, and then Myers hit another one. So the Padres completely exploded. They didn't let up in game three tonight, beating the Cardinals 4-0. And I felt like the Cardinals, after losing a game like that yesterday, were just completely done. I thought that Flaherty would give the Cardinals a chance to win, but their offense just didn't show up today. So in the end, it will be the Padres moving on to face the Dodgers. I think that's the division series in the National League that everybody wanted. Just like in the American League, everyone wanted Yankees Rays, and we're going to get into that in a second. But all in all, a very, very impressive showing by the San Diego Padres. Their first experience in the playoffs since 2006, the first playoff series wins since 98 when they went to the World Series. And it was the Stars that really brought them back from the dead because they looked like they had no shot. And then one swing by Tatis, and it all changed in an instant.
Yeah, Tatis Jr. stepped up huge for the Padres. The 2 home run game. He played, and then tonight played great defense, made a couple great plays at shortstop, had a couple big hits as well today. Yeah, the Padres they fought back. They easily, after game one, they could have rolled over and died, especially without Clevenger and without Lamet for this series. They were short on pitching, but Jace Tingler, you have to tip your cap to him. He did a phenomenal job managing their bullpen, getting them through those games. They used 9 different pitchers today. I don't know how many they used yesterday, but the game set a record for most pitchers used at 17. So that bullpen pitched a lot of high leverage situations, and they came up big every single time. And then going on to move and play the Dodgers it's going to be an exciting series. That's kind of what everyone was looking for. They've had a little drama a couple weeks ago with the home runs, so it's going to be a good series there. Another note to throw out there is just experience wise, the Padres had very little postseason experience versus compared to the Cardinals, where Yadier Molina has played more postseason games by himself than the entire Padres organization and players there. So just for a team that didn't really know what to expect, they had a great showing. As a baseball fan, it was good. As a Padre fan, if you are one, you should feel good about them moving forwards in this matchup against the Dodgers, as well as just in the future. They're set up so well moving forwards. They're going to be a threat. So it was a great series there.
Yeah, and I really think the Padres can make some noise later on when they play the Dodgers because they lost game one and then they were staring Wainwright and Flaherty in the face and they beat both of them. I mean, it took a while for them to get going. I think Tatis didn't hit that home run until the 6th or 7th inning.
Yeah.
But this is a team. They don't have a lot of experience, but they have some guys who have been there before. Machado's played in the playoffs with the Baltimore Orioles early in his career. Eric Hosmer won a World Series with Kansas City. They have some guys, Clevenger, when he's on the mound, obviously pitched in the playoffs for Cleveland. They have some guys that know what it takes to win in October, and they shouldn't be taken lightly. And we'll talk more about them in a second when we preview the Dodgers series. But talking about the Cardinals for a second, this is the second time they've completely collapsed. I mean, last year they beat the Braves. Remember that game 5? They scored like 15 runs in the first inning, whatever it was, and then went on to Washington and didn't even show up. Like, it wasn't even competitive, that NLCS. And then, they get the big home run from Goldschmidt in game 1 in the first inning, and then they have a lead they have a 4-0 lead in game 2. This is nothing short of a collapse. That's what you have to describe this series as for the Cardinals. They completely shut down after Tatis hit the home run. They didn't score a run in this decisive game. I think baseball got what it wanted with San Diego because I think they're a more exciting team And obviously, you sprinkle in the rivalry with the Dodgers that's about to happen. But from a Cardinals perspective, this is the second time their offense has completely disappeared in October.
Yeah, it wasn't a great showing tonight. Jack Flaherty pitched an amazing game. He went out
He looked
there.
great.
He threw six innings, gave up 1 run, struck out 8. You got to go out and get him at least 1 run. That completely changes the complexion of this game. And they had opportunities. They had the bases loaded, and they couldn't score a run. I don't know. It's just their offense. There's no one really there that's gonna really blow it open. Paul
Mhm.
Goldschmidt's a great hitter, but he's not that 40 home run guy. He's more of a 30s kind of a guy. Their leading home run hitter this year is Brad Miller, a guy who came off the bench for them. Um, just not a huge explosion on that offense. They do the little things, but they obviously didn't do it tonight to win a crucial game. And then going back to last year too, the same thing. It's basically the same group of guys minus Marcell Ozuna, and he had a huge year for the Braves this year. His bat probably would have helped them if they chose to re-sign him. They didn't. But just the Cardinals just aren't exciting as a team. I know you're not a huge fan of them.
No,
Just they're just boring.
there's no sex appeal to the Cardinals.
No,
That's the word I used.
they're just so boring as an organization, a historic organization, but boring in
Yeah.
my opinion.
I mean, it's a shame because, as you said, they are a historic organization and they go to the playoffs all the time. They've been to the playoffs, I think, in the last 2 decades since 2000, more than any other team, or close with the Yankees. I'm not, but they completely collapsed again. And, give it up, give it to the Padres. They saw it and they took it away from them. And I think baseball got a better matchup. And going forward, as we go into the offseason, looking at the Cardinals going into 2021, there's a lot of free agents out there. There's Francisco Lindor, who today said, the reputation of the Cleveland organization is to trade me, and I can't control if they do that or not. So there's guys out there for St. Louis to get. So kind of to wrap up the season and give a little obituary for the St. Louis Cardinals, they have Flaherty and they have Martinez and they have great pitching. That's the motto of their organizations. That's their MO. But offensively, they need to get that guy, as you said. They need to get that MVP candidate to slide behind Goldschmidt and have like a dynamic, 3-4. So that's something that they're going to have to do this winter. Is they have to get that, bat. They need to replace Ozuna and probably get someone better.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a chance that Adam Wainwright and Yadier Molina aren't part of this organization moving forwards. It's hard to imagine them not being there and going to play for another organization, especially at their age. But I think Yadi proved this year that he still has a lot left in the tank. He had a
Mm-hmm.
really good series, still playing great defensively. But like, how much do you pay him at this point?
Yeah.
Can you afford to keep him? And I don't think they really have anybody in the wings that's going to replace him. But
There's a certain free agent catcher out there, though.
there is one that missed the postseason, but it's just like it would be so odd seeing a Cardinals team without Yadier Molina
It
at
would.
this
It would
point.
be weird. They've been together since what, 05, 06?
I think he came up 04 and
That's a good
05. Yeah.
16 years.
Yeah.
So Cardinals maybe in the midst of a transitionary period, or they need to make some changes. They can't just send out the same lineup every year and expect to win. Something that's really interesting, I said this in our group chat before, and it ended up coming true. 7 teams of the Central Divisions made the playoffs. None of them moved on.
Yeah.
So we talked about when we previewed this season about how the Central Divisions aren't that good. And when the playoffs came around and all the teams were finalized, everyone's like, oh, the Central must be good because they all made the playoffs. Well, not really, because they just all beat up on each other, and that's just the way the schedule works. So no Central teams in the ALDS, and this will be a really quick conversation. The Dodgers were just better, and Milwaukee didn't belong on the same field.
Uh,
Milwaukee had their chances. They had a bunch of guys in scoring position, especially in Game 1. But at the end of the day, it was the Dodgers. And then I don't think anyone picked the Brewers to have any sort of chance in the series.
No, and if they did, they're either a Brewers fan or they're absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm.
Just they never spent a day this regular season above 500. They backed their way into the postseason due to the Phillies being terrible. But yeah, the Central kind of they took advantage of the bad teams. They, I mean, the Tigers and the Royals and the Pirates were three of the worst teams in baseball. I know the Tigers hung around for a little bit early in the year, but they're still a young, inexperienced team. So the Indians, the White Sox, and the Twins were able to take advantage of those teams, plus the Pirates, who were awful this year. But when it came down to it, when it mattered most, they fell apart. I mean, we were ripping the Twins in our group chat for being an embarrassment, which they kind of are. The White Sox melted down in Game 3 against the A's. Indians struggled against the Yankees. The Reds, I think, were the worst team in the
Mm-hmm.
postseason.
They didn't score a
Um,
run.
yeah, didn't score a run, so you should be at the bottom. And then the Cardinals, they stunk today. Um, they were going into tonight's game. The Central was combined 2-13 in the postseason, so make that 2-14 with tonight's loss for the Cardinals. Just a bad performance by that Central divisions.
So I'm not sure if we're gonna the four of us are gonna all be back and do a whole DS preview, but in case we don't, let's quickly, discuss the Dodgers Padres matchup. No guarantee Clevenger, right? Is he definitely not gonna pitch, or is it on the fence?
I don't think there's a definitive answer either way. I would probably lean more towards him not pitching. It didn't
Yeah,
sound great.
and Lament won't pitch either, right?
It didn't
Most
sound like
likely.
it either. They both of them elbow and shoulder or something like that for both of them. So it's not
So
ideal.
without those two, it's going to be very hard for me to think that they have a chance against the Dodgers. But they do, because what they just did. They just beat Wainwright and they just beat Flaherty back against the wall. So don't count them out. They have the lineup to put up runs against a Buehler and a Kershaw, especially how Kershaw is so, a seesaw in October. But at the end of the day, the Dodgers won the division for a reason. They went 42-17, whatever it came out to be, for a reason. They should be heavy favorites in the series. But I would give the Padres a puncher's chance in this series. I don't see why not. They have the firepower to do that. And if their pitching staff just, holds Dodgers to like 5 or maybe 6, and the Padres can outslug the Dodgers maybe in 1 or 2 games and push it to a 5, I don't see how that's impossible.
No, it's definitely a chance for the Padres. I think it's just gonna be a little bit tougher with a 5-game series this time around. Um, Zach Davies is gonna have to pitch better.
Mm-hmm.
He pitched well during the regular season, but he didn't pitch great in his start here. Um, Chris Paddock's got to be a lot better. He got rocked in game 1. He's gonna have to pitch better. I just don't. Who's gonna be that third starter? They need a third starter because you can't bullpen the next 3 games like that.
No.
That's asking way too much on that team. I know they're using Luis Patino, who's a 20-year-old kid out of the bullpen. He's a future starter. Do they give him a chance? They have Garrett Richards as well, who's started a lot of games, but he has been used out of the bullpen so far in this first 3 games. Does he get a chance? They need that third starter. They can definitely hit with the Dodgers, but the pitching, it's going to come down to the pitching.
Mm-hmm.
Kershaw had a great start in his first start of this postseason, but he's been up and down. We all know that he's got his demons in the postseason. Bueller's been shaky this year, but he's been good in the postseason in his young career. For both teams, it's going to come down to who pitches better in this DS series because they both can hit. They both have great lineups. They're going to hit the ball. Whoever pitches better wins that series. It's probably going to be the Dodgers. Just they have a few more arms, and we're taxed a little bit less in this wild card series.
Let's move on to the Reds in 3. And not only did the Reds lose in 2, they didn't. They thing in their normal 9 innings. They wasted Bauer's performance. in game one, which was just mesmerizing. He was absolutely fantastic. Solidified the fact you don't just the postseason stats don't count towards the Cy Young, but it solidified it in my mind that he was the Cy Young of the National League. And then they really didn't have a chance in game two, kind of like how St. Louis kind of just gave in game three. So disappointing series for the Reds, and now a lot of question marks as they go on. Bauer's most likely not going to sign back with the Reds. Is Sonny Gray might be a free agent as well? No, maybe
I think Sonny Gray's got one more year of control.
Sonny Gray's got one more year, but they're gonna have to replace Bauer if he doesn't resign. And also, like the Cardinals, this team didn't hit in the playoffs.
Yeah, they were an embarrassment. Outside of Nick Castellanos, no one else really hit.
I don't recall them ever threatening.
They had a couple chances in that first game in the extra inning game, but
what killed them was that play at third in game one.
Yeah, they were the base running mistakes were pretty bad.
Yeah.
For them. But as you mentioned, Trevor Bauer threw an absolute gem. 7 2/3 with 12 strikeouts. Absolutely dominated the Braves. Unfortunate that it had to go extras because they couldn't get him a run because it was a great performance. Same thing. Luis Castillo went out game 2, pitched really well. If they score one run,
yeah,
it's a whole different complexion. But they were just, I don't know if it was the early start times or what it was, but they got dominated.
They're a better team to get swept. They're a better team than that.
Yeah,
against the Braves team. I mean, all due respect to the Atlanta Braves, they're not the Dodgers. They're not a team that should be sweeping anything.
No, because you didn't really know what you were going to get with their pitching. You knew Max Fried was going to go out there and pitch well, but outside of him, you weren't really sure. Ian Anderson's a rookie, made 6 or 7 starts during the regular season. He had a good showing out here in his start. Their bullpen pitched really well, but I mean the Braves didn't hit the ball all that well either until late.
They got a couple big hits from Acuna, and then Ozuna I think hit a big home run in game 2.
Late in game 2, they broke it open with that 3-run home run from Ozuna, and Acuna had 3 hits in that game as well. I mean, the Braves are most likely going to beat the Marlins just because they're the better team, but they're nothing to write home about. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if somehow the Marlins figured out a way to beat them.
There's no reason why the Marlins don't have a chance. I think it's absolutely possible the Marlins win the series.
Especially
the same exact reason why we gave them that chance against the Cubs, and we all picked them against the Cubs because they just play baseball the right way.
Yeah, they do the little things, and especially since it's a division matchup. Like, they've seen each other. It was 10 times this year, but it's 19 times every other year. Like, they're very familiar with this Braves core. The Braves didn't impress me whatsoever. They could turn it on easily. That lineup is very good. They could turn it on, but what they showed wasn't that impressive.
Yeah, I was not impressed at all with the Braves. I think the Reds more lost the series and the Braves won it. I think the Reds they weren't ready for the moment, maybe, because they're a good team. I thought. Now, I don't know about you, but they were my dark horse to make a run at this thing in the National League. At least make it to the CS against the Dodgers and bow out quietly there. They're a much better team than what they portrayed in front of a national audience in the playoffs. Maybe they just weren't ready for the moment. I don't know. But other than Bauer, nobody else, and Castillo as well, nobody else really showed me anything in that series. So Votto wasn't that great. Castellanos, you said, was good. Who else? Nobody hit. It was just sad to see.
Yeah, like Mike Moustakas, a guy who has won a World Series, been to 2 World Series, went 0 for 8 with, I mean, it was only 2 strikeouts, so he's putting the ball in play, but still, you need him to step up. He's a leader on that team. Eugenio Suarez didn't really do much. That guy hit 49 home runs last year. They just didn't get enough. And Joey Votto going into that postseason said, we're a scary team. No one wants to play us. Like,
Yeah. How about that?
I think everybody would have wanted to play him.
Yeah, I think they were the easiest opponent. I mean, maybe the Twins were an easier opponent, but or the Cubs, which we'll talk to about in a second. But just to put to bed the Reds, going to be interesting what they do in the offseason because more likely than not, Bauer is going to sign somewhere else. I know Bauer has this thing where he doesn't want to sign long-term deals, but if you put a 7-year contract in his face, I dare him not to take it. So we'll see what happens in the winter. But moving on to those Cubs, what a joke that was. I mean, give the Marlins credit, give them their due. They deserved it. They were the better team in those 2 games. But how dare expectations that organization has since 2016 when Theo Epstein put this team together to just absolutely just completely die in the playoffs when you shouldn't be that team. You should be the team that won that World Series and you should be making deep runs every single year. They're way too talented not to. And they win the World Series one year. The next year they lose in the NLCS to the Dodgers. That's fine. That's respectable. Next year, they lose in the wild card game to the Rockies after they blew the division lead and the Brewers ended up winning that division. And then they didn't make the World Series last year and they fired their manager and they hired their best friend, David Ross, to be the manager. And everything was going to be great. And they had this great year and they won the division and they completely just collapsed against the Miami Marlins. That is an absolute joke for a team that has Hendricks and, and Lester and Bryant and Rizzo and Contreras, and I can go on and on and on and on and on. This is an absolute embarrassment for that organization to not only lose to the Marlins, but to get swept at Wrigley Field. Horrible. I think that's an absolutely pathetic job by the Cubs. And I think they should. I think the window might be closed because we don't know Chris Bryant's future. So I think the Cubs are in a real tough spot going forward. I don't know what this organization is anymore. That dynasty that could have been what might have just been kind of a one and done, like the '86 Mets or some other team. Like completely embarrassing.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. It might be time to blow it up and start fresh, especially while some of these guys still have value to trade. You mentioned their decline. So 16, they made it to the World Series, 17 NLCS, 18 wild card, 19 missed the postseason, and this year they made it back. Kind of reminds me of the Phillies.
Mm-hmm.
08, the Phillies won the World Series. 09, they lost in the World Series. And then after that, they lost NLCS, lost NLDS, lost wild card weekend, and then haven't been to the postseason since. Very similar. The Phillies held on to their guys too long and weren't able to get value back. For the Cubs, you're in a great spot right now to blow it up and get value back. Chris Bryant pretty obviously doesn't want to be there anymore. I think his performance has shown that. He stunk this year. He
Mm-hmm.
stunk in this series. Trade him while you can, get something back. I like Rizzo is the heart and soul of that team, but he's on the wrong side of 30 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Baez was horrible this whole year,
he's been really bad. He's very inconsistent. As
and he was my
flat,
best shortstop when we did our little fantasy draft.
yeah,
Completely made me look like an idiot.
as flashy as he is, he's not consistent.
Mm-hmm.
He got,
Hayward's not consistent.
Hayward's not consistent, and he's on the wrong side of 30. Schwarber can hit the cover.
Schwarber's saved by the DH rule. Like they can keep him around just because of that.
Yeah, he can hit the cover off the ball, but defensively he's not great. Wilson Contreras is good. I like Wilson Contreras. I think he's a good catcher.
I think he's the guy you probably build around. He's young. He's right. He's still in his mid-20s, right?
Yeah, he's still on the younger side. Ian Happ's still young.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like John Lester's older. He's on the
Mm-hmm.
way out. Craig Kimbrell's been awful since they got him. Kyle Hendricks is good. Darvish was good this year. He's still locked up for a couple more years. It was just bad. As you mentioned, it's embarrassing to lose to the Marlins, a team who, good for them, they had a great year. They rallied around their COVID issues at the beginning of the year. They came together as a team and have made a good run, but they're not supposed to be here. They lost or they lost 105 games
Mhm.
last year. They're 57 and 105 last year.
Mhm.
They just got hot. Shortened season, they were benefit of it because a bad team can play well over 60 games. Um, it's just not good for what the Cubs did. It was bad. It, they all looked disinterested to me.
Yeah.
Is how it felt to
I
me.
I guess they came into it like they were just automatically going to win. I don't think they took the Marlins seriously at all.
No, it's what it kind of sounded like. It was like, oh, we got the Marlins, we're the Cubs. Like, great, you're the Cubs. Like, your organization is the most like cursed. You've had the weirdest stuff happen to you guys over the
Mhm.
last 110 years. Like, they should not be going in there thinking
Yeah.
we're the greatest thing since sliced bread out here because
Mhm.
they haven't been.
Do you
They're
think they got it? You think the 2016? I mean, obviously, it wasn't a bad thing because they won the World Series for the first time in a million years. But do you think, in terms of that core, do you think that made them a little bit because of all the press they got and how they were, kind of heralded as like heroes and like these people that saved Chicago from this curse? Do you think they got into their heads a little bit and they've never been able to recover, or do you think they just, it's just run its course?
it's definitely a possibility. It's just like they shouldn't have declined as much as they have.
No, they're
Just
still good. They're still talented guys.
yeah, it's not like even the guys that are over 30, it's not like they're 37, 38 years old and like they've had injuries and stuff like that. They're still in their primes, still able to compete. It's just been it probably is that like they oh yeah, we won the World Series, like we're heroes in Chicago for the rest of our lives. Like
Yeah, no matter what they can do. Like, like your Eagles, Doug Peterson, no matter what he does, I guess he's always going to be the head coach that won the Super Bowl for Philadelphia. And no
yeah,
matter what happens after that, whether they don't make the playoffs or they have these heartbreaking losses in the playoffs, it doesn't matter to him because he's this hero.
yeah, absolutely. And the fans have a different, feeling towards you, especially in a city like Chicago for the Cubs. Those fans love the Cubs. Doesn't matter if the Cubs were winning 60 games or 100 games. Those stands are packed. Fans cheering them on no matter what. Um, so those players have a special place in the organization and the fans' hearts. So it's tougher to kind of move on and put pressure on them to succeed. And I don't know. It's just not good. It's probably the longest championship hangover in the history of sports is what they're
Oh, yeah,
going through.
absolutely. I agree 100%. So before we go to the American League side of things, let's just quickly go over the Miami Atlanta series. So Miami and Atlanta, we just got over talking about how I said there's no reason. Like, if you told me, Scott, that Miami would win this series and go to the NLCS against the Dodgers, that would not surprise me at all. Because in a divisional series against a team within your division, you already saw them 10 times this year. I don't have the season series at the top of my head right now. I didn't look it up. I probably should have. But Miami can win 3 games against Atlanta. I'm sure they did this season.
Yeah, they're very familiar. It wouldn't shock me at all. They're an interesting team. As we've mentioned it many times, they do the small things to win games. They steal bases, they bunt, they move runners, they hit behind runners, and they will run into the home run. Jesus Aguilar is a home run hitter. That
Mm-hmm.
guy can hit one at any point in any ballpark. Um, Corey Dickerson hit an absolute missile the other day in Game 1, and the ball Garrett Cooper hit today would have, if the wind wasn't blowing in as much as it was, would have went out of Wrigley. He
Mm-hmm.
absolutely crushed that ball. So they can hit the home run when necessary, but they just do the little things, and their pitching staff has been great. Sandy
Mm-hmm.
Alcantara and Sixto Sanchez absolutely shoved it down the Cubs' throats, and they could do the same thing. High velocity guys in the postseason are a threat because they can strike guys out and not have to worry about putting the ball in play. Like they can just shove it down your throat and say, "Here's my best Give me your best. I think the Braves will win it just because talent wise, top to bottom, there's just more there.
Mm-hmm.
Acuna's the second
Agreed. I agree with you.
Acuna is the second best player in that division behind Juan Soto. Freddie Freeman's gonna possibly be the MVP of the National League. Like they just have the guys to go do it, and I think there's pressure on the Braves to go
Mm-hmm.
do it. They won their first postseason series since 2001 today or yesterday. They need to make it to the NLCS against the Dodgers. It's
Yeah, Atlanta has everything to lose in this series
yeah,
because Miami's not supposed to be here in the first place. In fact, they should have been in last place under normal circumstances. Atlanta won the division last 2 years, and then this being the third straight year, finally got over the hump in the wild card round, and now are in the same spot where they've lost the last 2 years. The only difference is it's not the Cardinals and the Dodgers; it's the Miami Marlins. So you cannot by any means lose to the Marlins, but I don't think they'll lose. I think the Braves will move on. I'm just saying, do not be surprised if the Marlins win this series. Do not be surprised. Because
absolutely.
crazier things have happened, and the Braves aren't the 27 Yankees. So, well, that's an interesting series to me. I think it can go all five, but we will wait and see. But we're going to go on to the American League Division Series, and we're going to talk about another embarrassment. There were a lot of embarrassments in this. There's a lot of good stories, but the teams that lost, they didn't just lose; they completely humiliated themselves. And one of those teams, probably the most of those teams, is the Minnesota Twins, who lost their 17th and 18th consecutive postseason matchup, getting swept by the Astros, who came into the series and came into the playoffs under 500. So they lost game 1 4-1. They lost game 2 3-1. That's the 18. As I said before, 18 straight postseason losses for Minnesota. And then we'll get to Correa in a second. But let's just talk about what's on the field right now. Humiliation. I said last episode they should fold the franchise and move it to Montreal or do whatever. They should do that because this is absolutely unacceptable. It's terrible. This wasn't the Yankees. This is an under 500, Astros team that is shot in the leg and was bleeding out this entire year, and they had nothing. Altuve was bad. Correa was bad. Springer was bad. Bregman was bad. They had no Verlander. They had no Cole. They had Greinke and Yernique, however you spell his last name. I don't even know. They didn't even get to the colors. I don't know how you respond to this if you're the Twins organization. I don't know what you tell your fan base at this point. What can you do? What they lost the Yankees in the ALDS last year. They went out, they got Donaldson to add to that already pulverizing offense, and they got Maeda to add to that rotation. They did what they need. They did, they're not an organization that can go out and get a Cole. They did as much as they possibly could. They still didn't win a playoff game. What do you if you're the owner of the Twins, what do you tell your fan base at this point?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, hey guys, we made the postseason again, but like
they won the division again.
Yeah, but it's like, it's amazing how many games they've lost in a row. Like
they haven't won since game 1 of the 2004 ALDS. They got swept after that 3 straight, and then they lost in 09, 10 to the Yankees, 17 1 games to the Yankees, 19 3 straight.
They lost
I think
1 year
in
to the Tigers.
all that.
They lost to the Tigers.
Yeah, the Tigers. They got swept by the Tigers. Yeah,
and like they've had good players in their history and of recent, but it was just embarrassing. As you mentioned, the Astros had nothing going. I think the Astros probably would have been okay with not making the postseason and just going home and resetting and coming back next year. But now that they're here, obviously they're gonna show up and they're gonna play. But they were just a team that was walking like on the plank out to be killed. Like they're a bad team. Another team under 500, the first under 500 team to ever win a postseason series, mainly because they were the first under 500 team to make the postseason.
Yeah, works out.
Yeah, but it was just bad by the Twins. And
Scott, the series was over when they didn't score in the first inning of game 1. They had the bases loaded and 1 out. They had them against the wall. Somebody clears the gap there. The Astros are like, all right, you know what? It is over now because we came in under 500. We just got smoked in the first inning. They would not have won either. If somebody gets a big hit in that first game, in that first inning of the first game, the Twins sweep this series.
Yeah,
But
you're
they
absolutely right.
didn't. And Bregman, to his credit, I hate the guy. He's the cockiest guy. Actually, the second cockiest guy. The guy who's the cockiest player in the baseball stands to his left. We'll get that. We'll get to that. But he makes this incredible play, a play that only him and Arenado and Chapman and Urshela, 4 guys make. He's one of them. And then, they get the lead on a Nelson Cruz double, and then they give it up immediately. That was the killer. That was the backbreaker, that first inning. And then they did the same thing in game 2. They had the bases loaded again in the first inning of game 2. No big hits from that offense. Probably one of the best offenses of the game, and they completely failed. I am at a loss for words in terms of what this team does moving forward because there's not a lot of changes they can make. So I was trying to think about it, and I wish we had everybody here on the show today, Ty and Cash, so maybe we can get a different perspective, a different opinion, a different idea. But I don't know where this team goes from here. I feel like this is just going to be the way it is because how can this possibly change?
Yeah, because they're not a big market team. It's not like they're going to go out and spend a ton of money. But yeah, so I mean, the Twins have great players from top to bottom. They're a good organization. They have a good core, but it's just amazing that they can't win a game in the postseason, let alone a series. But to lose every single game in the series is impressive. And they're just kind of stuck. They're gonna be good moving forwards just because of the talent that they have, but I don't know what they can do to get better at this point. So they're just kind of
eventually fate is going to have to help them out.
Yeah.
The ball's going to have to break the right way. Eventually.
Yeah, eventually. Something's got to happen to help them. Like
you have to be able to luck into a playoff win.
You would think, but they right now they can't. So
it's amazing a team like the Marlins has never lost a postseason series ever.
But then the Twins
the Twins can't win a game. And the Twins have been a good franchise for the most part, and the Marlins haven't. So that's absolutely crazy. Let's get into Correa. I
knew he was going to say something. I knew it.
Went on and on after beating the Twins. Congratulations. About how everybody hates them and nobody wants them there, and what are they going to say now? They're going to say the same exact things they've been saying for the last 8 months.
Yeah.
What do you mean? What are we going to say now? What is this, an accomplishment? I mean, you won a World Series before, didn't you? Like, is this really that big of an accomplishment for you, beating the Minnesota Twins, a team that sucks in the playoffs, as we just talked about? And that's going to be your big, hey, screw you, MLB. Like,
yeah.
Are you kidding me?
It doesn't change anything that happened in 2017. They still cheated their way to a World Series championship. They still continue to deny it and be pompous assholes about it.
I know. It makes him look like such an asshole.
Yeah.
I don't understand how he thinks that that's a good idea to say things like that.
Like, he just needs to shut up. Like, at this point, yeah, he's playing well. He had a good year. He performed in this postseason series. But just shut up. People will like you so much better if you
hate you less. I don't think people are going to like him.
Yeah, true. They will hate you less if you just shut up at this point and go play baseball. Because that's what they are. That's what these guys are. They're going to be known for this for their entire lives. Nothing is going to change the fact.
And Scott, you know what this is going to do? This is going to just keep bringing all this up. So when there are fans again, hopefully next year, they're not gonna forget. They're not gonna be like, oh, a whole year has gone by. Let's not boo the shit out of them. When they say things like this and come off as these pompous, narcissistic, douchebags, they are really putting a target on them, on their back. If you commit a murder, Scott, are you going to like stand out in a crowd and say, hey, I did it, blah, 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 come get me? Or are you going to hide and hopefully not get caught? They do the complete opposite of what you're supposed to do when you get in trouble and when you get caught for doing something that's against the rules. They are kind of like bloating or gloating. I don't understand their thought process. I don't understand the mentality that they have for them to think that that's a good idea. And this guy especially, this guy always has shit to say. Like, remember in like June when this, fake letter came out about the Yankees and he was tweeting about it
Yeah.
and, making it look like Yankees did the exact same thing the Astros did, or when he went back and forth in the first spring training with the Dodgers about if you don't know the facts, then you can shut the fuck up. Uh, Dude, you cheated. Everybody knows you cheated. It's been proven that you cheated. To quote, a Fox News anchor, shut up and dribble, shut up and just play baseball. You do not have the right to talk about this anymore because you're wrong, you're guilty, and you're an embarrassment. And only because Manfred's incompetent, you got off for it. So you should get off free, and you should be grateful that you didn't lose any games or didn't get your title stripped. You should take, what, your community is saying about you and just deal with it and not try to fight back, because that's a losing battle, and that makes you look just as bad as the initial crime, in my opinion.
Yeah, I 100% agree. He's not helping the situation whatsoever. The whole thing took a huge toll on Jose Altuve. He was an absolute shell
I
of
don't care.
himself this
Who
year.
cares?
I know you don't care, but I know the broadcasters during the series were saying that
Ugh,
just
so annoying. I know what you're talking about.
like how it just mentally got to Jose Altuve. Like,
They don't have their swag. They
yeah,
don't have that chip on their shoulders. Jose's a sensitive kid. It
yeah,
really took him. Like, give me a goddamn break. Come on.
yeah.
My God.
They need to be quiet, play baseball, and
And they're
move
gonna
on.
get. They're not making it past Oakland. I don't think.
No, Oakland has something to prove against them because they're a team that
They
was
hate
greatly
that.
affected by them.
They
Uh,
lost divisions because of that.
yeah, so I hope the A's take it to them.
Yeah, but
Just
just to wrap up the Astros, I mean, I mean, congrats on the win. I guess you deserved it, but you gotta have some class and some dignity, and just shut up and say it was a hard fought series. Looking forward to the next one against a good Oakland team. To bring back the cheating scandal, uh, stupid. I mean, it's more making it about yourself than about the team. And Correa is all about himself apparently.
yes,
And it's weird because he's a free agent soon. And, the Astros, I don't know if they're going to, I mean, he hasn't really earned that big money contract, in my opinion. He had a great rookie year, but other than that, he's been all right.
he's been pretty average and he hasn't been on the field a lot.
I mean,
So
I mean, Lindor had a down year, but he's not Lindor.
no,
And he's not Story. And he's not, all these other great shortstops are in this game. So, like, he should be quiet a little bit. He's not Marcus Semien. He's not even the best shortstop in his own division.
no,
So,
he's not even the best shortstop on his team.
agree.
Bregman's a better shortstop
Yeah,
than him.
absolutely. Let's move on to that Oakland-Chicago series. I was the only one in this podcast to pick Oakland, not gloating, but just saying. But I wasn't looking good after game one because Giolito shoved for 6 perfect innings. And the White Sox won game one 4-1. And I was like, wow, I could not be more dead wrong. This Oakland team is dead. And, you thought up 1-0 with Chicago and their offense, with Keuchel on the mound, that they were just going to find a way to win this series eventually, but it just didn't happen. Oakland, home runs came out in game 2, fought off a late comeback by Chicago, won that game, and then, ended up squeaking out game 3. It didn't surprise me that the Oakland won because I picked them, but it was a little surprising that Chicago lost the series. I understand why a lot of people did take Chicago. A lot of people took Chicago to go to the World Series. Some articles and some analysts that I was listening to and reading had Chicago going all the way. So this series I feel like was the most even series in terms of talent and a kind of like a pick'em series.
Yeah.
But nothing really more to say about the series. It was a hard fought series. All 3 games were put pretty clean. And, Oakland won 2 and Chicago won 1. And that was kind of how I felt about it.
Yeah, it wasn't. I enjoyed the series. I watched a lot of it. I had the White Sox, and I agree. I think the White Sox could have been a team that made a run, just based off their talent. Tim Anderson was absolutely.
They're gonna be here for a long time.
Yeah, they really are. Giolito's finally figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
I never understood why the Nationals traded him for Adam Eaton. Could you imagine Giolito in that Nationals rotation with
Oh my God,
Scherzer and Strasburg and Corbin?
And Corbin.
Like
Wow.
those 4 would be phenomenal. But he had a great series. He obviously pitched a no-hitter earlier this year. and then was great in game one. Um, Tim Anderson was great. Jose Abreu was great. Just the bullpen killed him in game three. They bullpenned that game and they walked a lot of guys and weren't clutch when they needed them. And the A's, they had a great start from Chris Bassett in game two when they needed it, and their bullpen pitched great in game three.
Yeah. There's really nothing more to say about this series. It's one of those series where not a lot of controversy happened. The games were very clean. The umpiring was clean. There was nothing that really could have happened to really sway each way, one or the other. I will
Yeah,
say this though about Chicago. I think they need. Giolito's great. He's the ace of the staff. I think they need another guy. I don't think Keuchel's good enough too for this
yeah,
team to
they
go
need
where they want to
a
go.
third starter.
So whether it's a Bauer, um, or maybe someone like a Tanaka or a Paxton, if they can pry them from the Yankees, they need that next guy. I don't think Keuchel in this stage of his career he's not bad. I take him on the Yankees. I think you take him on the Phillies,
Yeah,
but he's not a guy to rely on. He's not 2015 Cy Young shut down the Yankees in the wild card game and look absolutely dominant. He's not that Keuchel anymore.
no, he's a finesse pitcher. He pitches to contact, and in this age of home run or nothing, he can get snake bitten by that. Because he's not going to strike a ton of guys out. He relies on his defense, his teammates behind him. He's a great three at this point. If they can get if they could somehow go out and I mean their organization has showed they're willing to spend the money. If they can go get a Trevor Bauer, that would be huge.
Mm-hmm.
Those three at the top of that rotation would be great, and would make them a legitimate contender moving forwards because they're very close. They are very close. They have a lot of great young talent. Um, so yeah, they're definitely a piece or two away at
So
this
that'll
point.
bring us to that, Oakland, Houston, ALDS. And if you're Major League Baseball and you're looking at the American League side of things with the division series, you cannot hand select two better division series to have to promote and market your sport because both these teams, both these, matchups, the four teams, they absolutely hate the other team. Oakland hates Houston. The Yankees hate Tampa. But we're gonna get to Yankees and Tampa in a second. We'll dissect those division series in a second. But in terms of Oakland and Houston, they already had a benches clearing brawl earlier
Yeah,
in the summer. This is going to be a real bloodbath. I think there's going to be a lot of bad blood. I think even more so than a Yankees Rays series. I think the Yankees and Rays are going to play more straight up, trying to prove it to the other team by beating them. I think this series, I don't want to say is going to get violent, but I think it can get really testy in a second. I think Oakland's going to win. I think Oakland's clearly the better team, and I think Houston's only there because the Twins just completely choked. But I think, especially if games get out of hand, like if it's like 10-3, something like that, I think something ugly could happen in this series. I think these teams absolutely despise each other. Plus, big storyline, Mike Fiers, who is the whistleblower to this whole thing, is going to pitch at some point against those Astros. I think this is
yeah,
absolutely fascinating for Major League Baseball.
yeah. Ton of great storylines for this series. The Ramon Laureano brawl
Mhm.
from earlier in the year. I hope he hits a home run in this series and absolutely just pimps one and has some words for that Astros bench.
I think this is the series where fans are going to be missed the most in the entire playoffs.
Yeah, especially in Oakland. Like
They're insane over there.
they're a weird fan base. They
hmm
don't have a ton of support, but when they show up,
hmm
it gets rowdy, it gets
It's a
loud.
niche fan base. It's not a
Yeah,
big fan base, but it's a rabid fan base.
especially now that the Oakland Raiders are gone. Like
hmm
they're all they have
The
because
Warriors left too. They
they
went to San
lost.
Fran.
Yeah, they lost the Warriors. Well, the A's are all they have. They got the drum section out there in the outfield. Um, yeah, it would be great to have them in the fans in the stands for that series. Yeah, I agree. A's should take it. They're the better team, better run organization,
Mhm.
um, more likable by everybody in the
Mhm.
world. So it's going to be a good one. It's going to be exciting just for the storylines. And
Yeah.
it would be great to see Mike Fiers have a
Oh,
great game
absolutely. That
and
would be great.
dominate them.
Like in a clincher, that's exactly what I want. Mike fires in a clinching game against the Astros.
That would be
I think
sweet.
that would be fire. Okay, moving on. We're gonna talk a lot about the Yankees and Indians, I feel. So we'll just quickly do the Rays and Blue Jays. The Blue Jays didn't deserve to be there. They had a nice year. It was cute, but they had no chance. I don't think they ever really threatened, ever. But good for them on the season they had, but Tampa was just overmatched. They overmatched by Tampa.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't see a ton of this series,
No,
mainly because it wasn't on ESPN. It was the only series that wasn't on ESPN.
yeah, it was on TBS.
They're just a young team. They have the young
Big break
bats.
by ESPN not having that.
Yeah, young bats, but they don't have any pitching yet. They need to go find some pitching, mainly homegrown pitching. But the Rays, we all know about the Rays. They're a very good team. Blake Snell had a great start. Glass now got another win. They're just a better team, well overmatched. Yeah, I don't have much to say about it.
Yeah, so take that as your will. That's our analysis on the Rays Blue Jays series. There's really nothing.
It was there.
Nothing to it.
It happened.
I don't even have. I've made Scott in front of me. I have notes on every series. I don't even have a notes for the. I forgot to put it down. That's how boring and useless that series was. But moving on, probably the most. I'm biased, and I paid most attention to this series. But I think I could say that this was the most tense series out of all of them.
Yeah, I think it was the most anticipated as well.
Yeah, I mean, Yankees Indians. Let's go game by game. Game one was the pitching matchup that everybody wanted, and it ended up being a blowout because the Yankees absolutely took it to Bieber. He went 5 2/3, 7 earned runs, 7 strikeouts. This is the guy that won the Triple Crown for pitching. Now, we talked about how the Central had these 7 teams in the playoffs and blah, 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 and then none of them won. Now, the same can be said about Bieber. I'm not saying Bieber's a bad pitcher. He's not. He's one of the best in the games. But you went from pitching against all these Central teams that, you have the Royals and the Tigers and the Pirates, and teams, like the Reds and the Reds and the Cardinals who don't hit much. Really, you're only really playing the Twins at that point and the White Sox. So that's really only 2 teams that can hit that you're facing. You're not facing all the other teams out there. So Bieber's record and his numbers are against those teams only. And when you go up against the Yankees, that's stepping up in weight class, to use a boxing term. And he clearly wasn't ready for it. And 4 pitches in, Judge hits the 2-run home run. That's a punch in the face for Bieber and the Indians. And in game 1, they weren't able to recover because they just kept going. And Glaber hit a big home run, and Stanton hit a home run, and Gardner hit a home run. Cleveland just wasn't ready, I think, for the Yankees in game 1.
No, absolutely not. I think the Indians expected Bieber to be what he was during the regular season. It might have been a little relaxed and said, oh, hey, this guy who has been absolutely dominant all year long, we only need 1 or 2 runs.
Yeah.
We're going to go win this game. I mean, they're going up against Garrett Cole. The guy was the best pitcher in the league last year.
7 innings, 2 earned runs, 13 strikeouts for Cole.
Like, I don't know how that team could have been, relaxed going into that, thinking we have Shane Bieber on the mound and saying, oh, but, that Garrett Cole guy, he's nothing special. Like, we can get him. Like, what are you thinking? That guy had 300-plus strikeouts last year, right? And just signed the biggest contract any pitcher has ever received. The guy's the best in the world right now. Like, they needed to be prepared. They weren't. And the Yankees were. Getting production out of Judge was awesome. You got production out of Stanton. Glaber went 4 for 4, right?
Yep.
Like, they got it from top to bottom in that game, which is what, when the Yankees are going, is what can happen. Because Glaber's not a 7-hole hitter, but he's hitting 7th right now. Like, the Yankees are just deep. They're scary.
Yeah.
And they jumped them, and they did exactly what they needed to, because getting past Bieber was the hard point in that series, because once they got past him, it's free game. So,
and I think the most important thing that happened, not only in this game, but really in the series, and that says a lot because Game 2 was a classic, an all-time classic, and we're gonna deep dive into that. But the most important thing that happened to me, in my opinion, in this whole series was Judge's home run in the first inning. That set the tone not only for the series for the Yankees, but the entire rest of the way for the Yankees because we didn't know what the Yankees were because they were this team 16-6, 5-15, 10-0, 2-8. We had no idea what team this was. They are not they in the regular season they were not the same team on the road than they were at Yankee Stadium. And Judge coming off the IL didn't do much in his at bats that he had to tune up for the playoffs. So a lot of Yankee Nation, a lot of Yankee universe is really nervous about this series going up against Bieber and a very good Indians team that has playoff experience. The Yankees could have easily got swept in this series, just judging by going by the rosters and by how both teams were playing going in. And Judge in the fourth pitch of the game hits a 2-run home run, and the entire city of New York just takes a collective deep breath, like, okay, we're going to be fine. And then the Yankees keep rolling. And that's what a captain does. You can say all you want about Judge and his injury history, and that's all valid because he needs to stay on the field more, especially if they want to get the contract that he wants. But when he's on the field, he is the leader of the team and he sets the tone for the team almost like Jeter did the last generation. He's the guy on this team. And if he doesn't hit that home run, this whole series is different.
Yeah, and we've seen it before from Judge. He did it in the wild card game. Was it 2 years ago against
Yeah,
the A's?
against Oakland.
He hit the huge home run in the first inning. Like, he's known to do this, and something like that, especially from your leader, he does that early on in the game. That jolts everybody else, and it puts the opposing team on the ropes, and it did. Shook Bieber, and then they beat his brains in for the next couple innings. And it catapults you going into game two, and you have that momentum now going into this DS series against the Rays. It was huge for them to go out and win game one.
So the Yankees win game 1 12-3, and then game 2 happens. And game 2 was probably the most stressful game I ever watched in my entire life. I was pacing around this room right here, just in circles the entire time. So let's start talking about MLB and what their complete mess up to start this game with the rain. So they delay the start of the game because there's rain, and that's fine. That's totally fine. It was a 50-minute rain delay, so be it. They start the game. It's very windy, and Carrasco gets through the top of the first. That's fine. They come back from commercial. ESPN comes back from commercial. Scott, it's like the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's a complete hurricane, a typhoon, if you will. How they allowed to? First of all, they shouldn't have started the game if they knew this was coming. There's Doppler radars. You can see this coming. There's no way a storm like that goes undetected by Doppler radar. It's impossible. I'm not a meteorologist, but like I have common sense. They should not have let Tanaka throw a single pitch in that bottom of the first. They should have put the tarp on during the commercial break. That is an all-time mess up by MLB. And it really impeded Tanaka's ability, one, to have a good top of the first because he gave up an RBI double and the Indians scored 4 runs. And it impeded him from going further in the game. And it really hurt the Yankees bullpen where they had to use Loizaga in must-get situations later on. It was a complete bad job by Major League Baseball in their marquee postseason series, the one that they, marketed all the time, more than any of the other series. That was the one they were advertising, and they completely dropped the ball on it. That's an embarrassment by MLB. They can't let that happen.
Yeah, game should have never started. You already delayed it 15 minutes. Delay it the next extra 30 minutes after that. Like, no big deal. You're not in that big of a rush. Like, you could have gotten the game in the next day if you had to, or it goes on late. Like, who cares? Like, it's on late at night.
It was late anyway. It was a 2
Yeah.
a.m. game anyway.
Yeah, like it really did. I mean, once they started, like, I think they kind of had to like try and go for it because you would have been screwing the Indians and Carrasco if you just threw the one inning and then shut it down. But Tanaka, he struggled in that first inning, but he kind of rallied and held it down afterwards, which was good because it could have gotten ugly for the Yankees really quick. He kind of put the brakes on things and kept them in it so their offense could get back into the game. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Game should have never started when it did.
So the Yankees get down 4-0. Stan hits a big home run, makes it 4-1. A couple innings later, Gio comes up, bases loaded, hits that huge grand slam off the reliever who is dressed like Vaughn. Like he had the haircut, he had the number, he had the velocity, all that didn't matter. Gio absolutely deposits one to left field, and all of a sudden the Yankees are up 5-4. And I don't know how you felt, Scott, but when that happened, and it was only 5-4, it felt like it was like 15-4. Like it
Yeah,
felt like the Yankees were completely in control. That was it. That's the game. But to the Indians' credit, they came back. The Yankees got rid of Tanaka because I think first and second or whatever it was, and they brought in Green, who gave up immediately the game tying double. I think it was 6-4, and then Green gave up the double to make it 6-6. And then Sanchez comes up, hits the home run, makes it 8-6, and it's just this back and forth throughout the entire time. And then the Indians end up taking the lead in the ninth inning. Well, there's a couple reasons why. One, because they're the Yankees bullpen, and we'll get to this in future episodes when everyone's back. The Yankees bullpen isn't as dominant as it used to be. Green gave up runs. Britton ran out of gas. Loizaga, the poor guy, poor kid, hard to ask him to make those kind of outs. He's not, that kind of reliever.
no.
So the Yankees find themselves down going into the ninth inning, and they have Brad Hand on the mound, 16 for 16 in save opportunities, hasn't blown a save. And it goes. Actually, no, I want to go back for a second. I'm sorry. Chapman gives up the lead, so it's 9-8, and then Urshela makes this absolutely insane double play, diving to his left and getting up in time, throwing it to LeMahieu. LeMahieu tosses it to Voit or Ford, who was in the game for defense at that point. Just incredible game by Gio Urshela. Like he's an absolute star.
Yeah, he's an incredible player and somebody that the Indians gave up on because he didn't really hit when he was with the Indians. He's always been great defensively. Um, that grand slam he hit was an absolute bomb. He crushed that baseball. Um, I was shocked. Like I was amazed at how well he hit that. Like as soon as he hit that ball, you knew, and it was, as you mentioned, it was kind of you felt like it was a dagger, and I was like, oh wow, like the Yankees, they have control of this, and the bullpen had its issues. Um, yeah, the kid's phenomenal. He's an incredible player, and you're barely paying him anything. Like
Yeah.
hold
They
on
got
to
him for
that,
25 grand. You can get a good car for more than that.
hold on to that kid for dear life because
Yeah.
he's phenomenal. And like they kept showing him on the bench, like he had the biggest smile on his face, like he was just so happy in that
Mm-hmm.
moment. That whole game um, was incredible for him. So
Yeah. So in the ninth inning, the Yankees, they come back, they get a walk from Stan. Stan had a very good series. I will give him credit. I'm the biggest Stan critic, Scott. I think you know that by now.
yes,
I got to give credit to him. He had a great series. He had a home run in game one, home run in game two, had a sac fly, had a huge walk in the ninth inning. I thought for sure he was going to strike out. I was like, there's no chance this guy's coming up big for us. But he got that walk. Urshela punches one up the middle, base hit. First and second, Glaber gets that high chopper, Hand can't field it. Gardner strikes out. Sanchez, I was like, oh, this is a double play waiting to happen. I'm very pessimistic when this kind of things happen. He hits the sac fly. DJ LeMahieu, who went into that bat 0 for 4, that was the one time I was confident in that inning because I was like, he's too good to go 0 for 5 in a game.
yeah,
He's not. It's not going to happen. And he gets down 0-2. I'm like, oh shit. Like if they don't score here, I don't think they're going to win the game. He gets the big hit, and then Chapman closes it. Like a really, really, really great game for the Yankees, and really an all-time great game. That's a game that I will remember as a Yankee fan for a long time. That was crazy.
yeah. It was an awesome game. Great for Major League Baseball to have a game like that back and forth. As you mentioned, DJ LeMahieu isn't going 0 for 5 in that situation. It does not matter who was pitching in that spot.
Mm-hmm.
DJ LeMahieu was going to find a way to come up big for the Yankees. It's just what he does. The guy's always hit. There's never been any question about that. And another guy that the Yankees got for a steal, like the fact
Mm-hmm.
that they got him, what was it, 2 years, and I don't
2
even know,
years. I think it was 12 million a year.
like that's an absolute steal for
They have that. They have the Urshela. They have the
Voight.
Torres deal, the trade, the Voight trade. The list goes on and on about fleeces that Cashman's put on Major League Baseball.
Yeah,
If you're a GM and Brian Cashman calls you about some no-name guy in your organization, you
hang
have
up
to
the
think
phone.
twice. You're
Hang
gonna
up
be
the
like, I
phone.
don't. You're gonna be like, oh, what does he know that I don't? It's incredible.
Yeah, because like a couple of years ago, I know when the Yankees first got Luke Voigt, I was very skeptical of him because I thought he was just a burnout in St. Louis and wasn't going to do anything. Guy won the home run crown this year.
Yeah.
But like, it just as you mentioned, just an all-time great game. People are going to remember this one, and like I guess the only negative to it is the rain pushed it back. It was a late game.
Mm-hmm.
Like if that's a middle of the day game, and like you can get like an average baseball fan to watch that game, like
And also, it was competing with the NBA Finals.
yeah, they're going
Which
to
is
be
rough.
blown. Like an average fan's going to be blown away by that game. That
Mhm.
gets them hooked in moving forwards. But just an awesome game all around, and I I know you're probably still going to be skeptical moving forwards of your Yankees, but I think they have the right momentum right now.
Mhm.
They feel confident, and if Stanton's going to play well moving forwards, knock on wood, like that's huge for them.
Yeah, let's segue into a quick kind of preview for the LDS, and then we'll just wrap it up. Like Yankees Rays, this was going to happen. I mean, we know the drama, we know the throwing at people, dating back a couple years when they threw at Romine, then CC threw him back, and all this stuff happened. And now this year with Chapman appealing his suspension and Kevin Cash saying, "I have a stable of guys that throw 98, whatever." These teams don't like each other. I think it's funny that they're sharing the same hotel in San Diego. I think that's really funny. But these teams do not like each other. I don't think it has the potential to get as kind of ugly as the Oakland Houston series because I think that hatred runs much deeper because it's more than just on the field. It's off the field as well with the cheating scandal. But MLB needs to be thrilled with the Yankees Rays matchup because these are the best two teams in the American League. I think it could go either way. I'm gonna pick the Yankees because I'm a Yankee fan, obviously, and I'm gonna go down with the ship. Even I didn't believe they'd win the Cleveland series. I still took them. I thought they were gonna lose to Cleveland, but because I'm a Yankee fan, I have to take them. I think the key is going to be after Cole because I know Cole's gonna show up and he's gonna pitch well. Is Tanaka gonna pitch well? After Tanaka, is Happ gonna pitch well? Is Garcia gonna pitch well? Because remember, Scott, all these games in a row, there's no off days. So Cole's pitching once in the series. Who else is going to get outs for this team? I think their offense is going to do well against Snell and Glass now. They can easily not do well and they can get shut out. But the way they're swinging the bats now, I think swinging the bats well on the road away from Yankee Stadium is not only big for moving on in the playoffs, but just for their confidence sake, because everyone said, "Oh, they're only bad at Yankee Stadium." Luke Voigt said before the series that was bullshit, and he was right. So I think that demon has been exercised. Can the Yankees get the big outs that don't come from Cole? Because Cole's going to get the outs. Is Tanaka going to get the outs? Is Garcia going to get the outs? Is Chapman going to get the outs? Is Britton going to get the outs? Is Green going to get the outs? And here's another thing, Scott. With their bullpen, you can't hide Ottavino in the series if it goes 5. Ottavino or Holder or Loizaga
You're gonna
or
have to pitch.
somebody's going to have to pitch. So they're going to need someone other than Chapman, Britton, and Green to get big outs in the series. So is Ottavino going to step up? That's something that I'm going to be looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, they're definitely going to need their pitching staff to come up big moving forwards, especially with these games being back to back to back to back. I don't really get it. I don't understand why they're doing it, but it's the way it is. Every team's going to have to deal with it moving forwards. It's going to be a great series. I think the Yankees are going to win. They're just the better team. They have more firepower. But you're right. They could go either way. The Rays know how to win games. That's why they had the second best record in baseball this year. They're a good team. But there's just more firepower in that Yankees lineup top to bottom. If Gleyber Torres is hitting 7th and is going to hit 700 the rest of the way, like you can't ask for anything more from your 7-hole hitter. And you know what? Gary Sanchez hit.
Yeah,
He got some
the
big
job.
– he did what he needed to do. So you can get him to be somewhat productive too out of the 9 hole,
Hmm.
like there's really no
And
reason to
Gardner
be
hit
scared.
too.
Yeah.
Gardner and Sanchez hit. Those are the 8-9 guys.
The,
So
the only two guys that didn't really hit were Judge and Hicks, but
yeah.
Judge had the huge home run
Hmm.
and Hicks gets on base.
Yeah.
So they'll pick their average up, but the Yankees are too good top to bottom to not win this series.
I agree, but they were 2-8 against Tampa, so you got to give Tampa the respect that they deserve.
Yeah.
And obviously, their pitching is just deeper. So the Yankees will win the series if somebody other than Cole steps up. That's going to be my challenge for the Yankees, but we'll see what happens. And that's our show for our little wild card review. Hopefully next week, Cash and Ty will be back, or whenever we record next. It might be as early as this weekend to really get in depth with the ALDS, but we'll see what happens. It's very fluid for this entire month of October. But Scott, just you and me, it went pretty well.
Yeah,
Maybe we don't need Ty and Cash.
we might not. We could cut them out if necessary.
Yeah.
Glad we were able to hop on here tonight. A little late night recording session. We went from early morning earlier this week to now midnight Eastern
I'm much
time
more
here.
comfortable doing this at midnight than
Yeah, I know you're a night owl. I'm starting to hit the end of my stride because I'm up earlier in the day. But glad we were able to get on here tonight. Recap the great first week of playoffs. Hopefully we got a whole nother month of this. So
yep. It was a great wild card series. It's going to be a great division series, and it's only going to get better as we march towards the World Series. We're going to be doing this podcast every step of the way, and that is just going to do it for us on BASEHITBALL4. For Scott Roswald, my name is Glen. We will see you next time.